Chris Beitler, and I'm part of the Joint Public Agency Board. This is the meeting of the Joint Public Agency of the West Haymarket. And for March 19th, or March 26th, 2015, the open meetings law, this is an open meeting, and the open meetings law is posted, I think, back by the door, is it not? Public comment is welcome at the meeting, and there is a time limitation. We ask each individual to take no more than 5 minutes and less questions, and those who testify should identify themselves for the official record. With me today is Doug Emery from our council and Tim Clare from the Board of Regents, and together we constitute the board of the Joint Public Agency. And with that, unless you gentlemen have comments, we'll go to agenda item number 3, the approval of the minutes from the JPA meeting held January 29th, 2015. It's been moved that they be approved. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Okay. Call the roll.
Emery?
Yes.
Clare?
Yes.
Beitler?
Yes, the minutes are approved. Agenda item number 4, the approval of the January and February 2015 payment registers. Steve Hubka will present those to us.
Yes, we have 2 months' worth of pay registers for the month of January, roughly $2.8 million. A couple of the bigger expenditures were payment of the last installment with Legends, $1.4 million. That was out of the operating budget. And we had some expenses for parking reimbursement, which are routine monthly expenses. On the Phase 1 budget, we reimbursed Public Works $300,000 for pigeon proofing. And those are the biggest expenditures out of there. And on Phase 2, there were some payments for the West Haymarket parking garage for equipment. So those, again, total roughly $2.8 million. For the month of February, was $647,500, including the amount from Public Works and Utilities for reimbursement. These were pretty much all routine payments, with the one exception of the quarterly payment from the JPA to the arena for sponsorship revenue, which is 1/4 of the annual amount of $1,020,000. So we paid $255,000. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions of Steve?
The pigeon proofing, is that a one-time expense, or will that be an annual ongoing expense?
I would, not positive, I wasn't prepared to answer that, but I would think a one-time.
One time.
I'm glad you're there, Paul. I didn't see you.
Any other questions of Steve? Steve, thank you very much. Is there public comment on this particular item? If not, is there a motion to approve the payment registers for January and February of this year?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded that they be approved. Any further comment? Call the roll.
Emery?
Yes.
Clare?
Yes.
Beitler?
Yes, they are approved. Agenda item number 5, review of the January and February 2015 expenditure reports, again by Mr. Hupka.
Just point out that those expenditure reports reflect the activity that was on the payment register, and within the next couple months, we'll likely be bringing some modifications to the budget to clean up some things.
Okay, questions of Steve, comments?
2, 3, 4 months down the road, where do you see the payment register in terms of open accounts, do you see those being closed up so that really there's not much activity on these accounts?
Yeah, I think the Phase 1 and Phase 2 budgets would likely be closed out in some manner and adopt something that allows us to go forward with some of the contingency money still available, if not all the contingency money. But that's up to the board how we proceed with that. But there's a point in time here where these Phase 1 and Phase 2 budgets are really not needed to be carried on the way they are right now.
What sort of contingent money is remaining in the budget?
I think it's about 11 million, isn't it? Yeah.
North of 11 million. And what about, from a budget standpoint, where do we fall with the budget? Are we still on budget, under budget?
Well, obviously with 11 million on the project budget, we're in great shape, and I don't think there's anything totally unexpected in the operating budget either. So we're in good shape.
Steve, just so we don't leave it open-ended, when you say you're gonna bring in some budget corrections, you wanna give me an idea or give us like an example?
Well, an example might be if we close out Phase 1 and Phase 2 budget, there's some environmental work that will remain to be done, and if we move that over to a post-construction budget, for example, if that's the decision that's made, we'd close out the Phase 1 budget
Okay.
where that's at and move that to.
So we're talking more about closeout things, and
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure that it's pretty clear that we don't leave it open-ended and, okay?
Any additional questions? Okay, is there any public comment on the expenditure reports? If not, we'll move on to agenda item number 6, Resolution 15-7 relating to the financial audit management letter from BKD with respect to the period ending August 31st of 2014. And I think that's being presented to us by Mr. Lindner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. Here to present the JPA's August 31st, 2014 financial report and management letter in connection with that. A few things to touch on first. Again, a big thank you to the city finance team for Steve and his team, and especially Mark Lycum and Jane Tillman for the work that they put in putting things together for us to come in and take a look. And I will identify it later in the management letter as I discuss that, but we did not have any material audit adjustments that we identified. So any big changes to the financials as part of our audit. And also, I will note that we had no control findings or issues as part of some of that control testing we do as well. So a big kudos and compliments to them for the work that they do in having things ready for us when we come in to complete our engagement. You should have received a copy of our audit report and communication letter, or referred to as a management letter as well. And I'll kind of touch on a few things in there just to kind of review things with you. Again, if at any time you're going through things and you have questions or want to walk through anything with me, I definitely want to leave that chain of communication open, so that if you would want to contact me directly to discuss an item, even outside of the audit period, I'm definitely open and available for that for the boards at their discretion. The couple things to touch on here, the first few pages in, you'll notice our independent auditor's report. This is our opinion. It is an unmodified or a clean opinion, so the financial statements are materially accurate and in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles. After that is the management's discussion and analysis. This is really management's section of the document. They put that together in kind of their layman's terms of the financials, and so it's kind of read in conjunction with the audit report. Getting into the financial statements themselves, starting on page 7 of the report, is the governmental fund balance sheet and the statement of net position. And this has, maybe for someone that doesn't see government financial statements as often, a little different format to them, because you see a project fund, and then you have an adjustment column, and then what you have the statement of net position. And what that is for a governmental entity like the JPA, similar to other governmental entities, you have to record things at the modified accrual level, and then you also then bring that to a full accrual level, or the full accrual is essentially what you'd see in commercial or the private sector. And so this is the accounting similar to what the city of Lincoln as a whole would do. However, because the JPA being a sole entity without numerous funds to account for like the city, we're able to present that on one page. And so you have the two different fund levels. We do have a footnote that it's part of our footnote 1 on page 13, which kind of goes through some of these adjustments in a little more detail of saying what they are. For the most part, really what the difference between these two bases of accounting are, it's more of a short-term versus a long-term focus. So on the balance sheet, you'll notice at the modified accrual level, you don't record things such as capital assets, which are of course a longer-term asset, and then also you don't record the longer-term liabilities such as long-term debt, where at the full accrual level you would recognize those liabilities. On the statement of governmental fund revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, or also the statement of activities, the fancy governmental term for an income statement, you have the same, again, presentation of a modified accrual level and a full accrual level with that adjustments column, with those differences being explained in that footnote a little bit, and looking at, things depending on recording capital activity as an expenditure versus capitalizing that, and then also any debt activity is shown as an expenditure if you pay debt versus at the full accrual level, it's just a reduction of that liability. So again, you're going to have those adjustments for the different bases of accounting. And again, that's really in terms of the structure of the entity and the presentation of the financial statements can be for somebody outside that doesn't look at this stuff every day like I do, maybe a little confusing. So that's something definitely, if at any point you'd want a little clarification of what we're doing there, we're glad to discuss that with you further. Looking through the footnotes, really the footnotes to pay special attention to, footnote 2 goes through deposits and investments. Not a whole lot of change in terms of the composition there. For the most part, the JPAs, the majority of the cash that they hold is within the city of Lincoln's pooled cash and investments. Although it is within that pool, it's obviously segregated within its own funds there, so they're able to track all the receipts and inflows and outflows, so they're able to segregate that activity separate from the city's accounts. You go into your capital assets, what's your infrastructure activity, long-term debt. And then as you get in onto page 20, you start to get into more of the footnotes that give some more of the unique details of the JPA with lease agreements, some of the other contractual agreements that the JPA has entered into in relation to some of the activities down in the West Haymarket area. And then a note always to pay special attention to on page 23 relates to related party transactions. Obviously, the most material transactions are the ones between the city and the JPA, and then also the university and the JPA. And so we do our best to disclose, as much information as we can there without getting into a lot, the very nitty-gritty of the details where you could go on for days in trying to describe a certain transaction. Touch on the letter a little bit. In terms of the audit report, the financial statements, the footnotes, do you guys have any questions for me on that? Okay. Going through the management letter real quickly, we did not have any new auditing standards to comply with this year, so the form and content of this letter is going to be similar to what you've seen in the past. Touches on really what's the scope of our audit engagement, what's our responsibility, what's management's responsibility, talking about some of the significant accounting policies of the JPA. Those significant accounting policies are found in note 1 of the audit report. So how does the JPA account for certain items in those financial statements? Going through the letter, you go through any judgments, accounting estimates. Moving forward, we don't have it listed in this letter, but going forward, depreciation is always an accounting estimate because when you assign depreciable lives to assets, there's always some estimation there. How long do we really feel that asset's going to be in service? So as the JPA is really now in its second full year of operations, you'll begin to see a little more of that. And then, as I mentioned, as I kind of went through reviewing the report, the financial statement disclosures, any disclosures we feel have a little more significance or sensitivity, we would list here. And so the couple that I had already mentioned, contractual arrangements on page 20 of the report, related party transactions on page 23, and then anytime you have some maybe commitments or contingencies, those types of items are on page 24 of the audit report. As I mentioned earlier, if we did have any audit adjustments, we would have to list those in this letter, so we did not have anything from a material audit adjustment standpoint that we felt warranted inclusion in this letter. And then also, if we had any disagreements with management or if we had any difficulties encountered in performing our audit, we would need to disclose that to you as the board. We had no issues from that standpoint. And then the last thing in our letter, if we have any items that are, not control related, maybe just some best practices, some recommendations, we would list those at the end. And this also gives us an opportunity, maybe as new accounting standards come up, to give, management, also the board, maybe a little bit of a heads up of things that are coming down the road. And so there is, at the time when this letter was issued, there's a proposed accounting standard dealing with fair value measurements. Since this letter was issued in the last month, it's actually now has been issued as an official accounting standard that really doesn't change the accounting for certain items, cash and investments, fair value wise, but really the bulk of this standard is going to require the disclosures, the footnotes relating to fair values to be expanded quite a bit. So as that comes down the road, and that probably wouldn't be effective then, thinking of the implementation date, until the JPA's fiscal 16 year end. As that comes along, that would definitely be something we'd be happy to sit down and help management through. What are the disclosures that are going to be necessary as part of this accounting standard? So, that kind of wraps up everything I wanted to, cover with you. Again, even past today, if there's any time that you guys would have any questions for me, clarification on any items, I'd always open that communication up. Anything further from me?
Questions?
So clean bill of health, you feel like the finance people have done their job relative to the operational side, getting the necessary signatures from a performance audit, and then from a financial audit, you feel confident in everything?
Yeah, from a financial standpoint, it's really, where we're going to look, and part of that we do under government auditing standards, which we also audit the JPA under the government auditing standards. We do look at a sample of those controls to make sure if certain people are supposed to be signing off on documents, on vouchers, that nature, is that taking place? And so we'll pull a sample of those documents to make sure that is getting done. And from that standpoint, we felt the controls were in place and operating.
And even more important, from a compliance standard, we are in compliance with.
From the compliance standards that we would look at, I guess, and when you think about compliance, there's always, and from the City of Lincoln standpoint, there's federal compliance with federal programs and that. The JPA does not currently have any of those types of dollars, I guess, running through. Right. The compliance that we would look at are certain depository types items of deposit balances in excess of FDIC insurance and that. So we'll look at that types of compliance. And if we have non-compliance, we would have to disclose those as part of our second opinion in the back of the report. And again, we had no issues from that sort of compliance standpoint.
Thank you.
Okay.
You good?
Good.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you very much,
Yes.
Chris. Is there public comment on agenda item number 6?
I can. This is my, I've got it written on it, but I can. There you go.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion first before she speaks?
A motion for what?
Do we have to accept the audit report?
I think she gets to comment first.
Is this a different
Just wanna make
audit
sure
than
we
you
have an
had
audit on it.
before that
Do we have to
came
have a
before
motion
the
on the
board?
table for that, for
Or is
discussion?
this the same thing?
I'm sorry, Jane. Try that again. I was questioning whether just by Robert's rules, we needed to have a motion on the floor before we had discussion. I don't know the answer to that. Jeff, do we need?
No.
Okay, good.
Before discussion within the board, you would, because it's
Gotcha.
not part of the discussion.
Gotcha.
Say your question again. We didn't hear your question.
What?
We did not hear your question.
Oh, okay. I hope my 5 minutes starts now. Is this the same audit that that was presented for 2014, or is this a new audit?
Steve, why don't you come on up here and, so we can be as precise with our answers as possible.
This is the one and only independent auditor's report for the fiscal year ended August 31st, 2014.
Okay, but they had presented an audit before, was on the list of the agenda.
Which agenda? The meeting for today had an audit report on the agenda.
Yeah, but there was another one before, or was that just hiring them?
Yeah, there was, back a few months ago, was hiring them and engaging them to do the audit.
Okay, so then they went over the whole year, whole
Yes.
first year? Okay.
Well, this is the 5th audit now of the JPA.
Oh,
There's 4 complete fiscal years, and then there was the first stub year at the very beginning. So JPA's been audited 5 different times by
It's a
the
requirement, is it not, that we be independently?
Yes,
okay.
by nationally,
Audited at the end of every year to make sure that we are in compliance.
yes.
Okay. And Watchdogs would respectfully ask that an independent audit be made of the JPA. There are conflicting interests when we are hiring somebody and having them do the audit for you. And particularly since 5 months into this fiscal year, the arena is $335,000 in the red. It's of concern to the public because the taxpayers' money is at stake. Should they be taxed to pick up the bill? Is there any money in the next budget to pick up the deficit? Should there be one?
No, there is not, and
Okay.
we're not expecting there will be one by the end of the year.
Okay. Hopefully.
Yes.
It hasn't been in the red yet, though.
No, I think if you
Hasn't been
ask
in the
any
black.
business, the only budget that really matters number is what you have at the end of the year, right? I mean, it doesn't make any difference. If you ask somebody who builds swimming pools what their budget looks like in January, it might not look too good. Might look a heck of a lot better at the end of the year. That's what we said we would hit, the budget at the end of the year.
Okay. However, as you watch it month by month, there can be concerns.
Absolutely.
And
But you don't have to
Watchdogs
start-
has concerns.
You don't have to start worrying about how you're gonna pay for it until you get there, though.
Oh, well, we know how we'll pay for it, how it will be paid for.
It'll be paid for this year because we'll balance the budget.
Okay.
you.
But if it is not in the black, the taxpayers will be paying for it. And nobody can predict the future. Right?
Well, we're talking about apples and oranges here, Jane, because you're talking about the operational budget, which we do every year. And then you're talking about the JPA capital budget, which would be to pay off the bonds. Those are two separate items.
And the capital budget is what holds all the occupation tax and many of the revenue that's coming from the arena. And that is, right now, I believe, Steve, it's at 2023 is where we budgeted that to be.
And we came in at 14.7, I think that was equal to 2022 numbers.
Sorry. That was a year off. 2022, so it's doing extremely well. And that is what, if I was in your shoes, that's what I'd be asking about, because that's what has the obligation to pay the debt. Our third party, the operations company, has no responsibility to pay the debt. We don't want them to make $1 million, because if they make $1 million, they have no responsibility for the debt, the bonds. They got nothing. They walk away. It's the operational, it's the capital budget that has a responsibility. That's the thing housing the occupation tax. That's the budget, if I was in your shoes, that I'd want to be concerned about.
Well, I would consider that diverting me from the issue.
That's fine.
And I think I have.
Yeah, we never want to let the
an
facts
opinion.
get in the way.
What?
I said we never want to let the facts get in the way.
What's that mean?
Well, we tried to explain to you, Jane, that there are two different budgets here. You asked about the budget for the arena, which is $300,000. At the end of February was $300,000 plus in the red. But we don't actually you don't actually have that until the end of the year and know what your performance is, right?
You know what it is now.
You know what it is now. You know what it is. If you have a swimming pool company, you know what it is in January, and it might not be good because you didn't build many swimming pools in December and January, did you?
Well, that's a possibility.
Okay, and so at the
But
end of the year.
you have to look at the facts of today, not projections.
Okay, my point is, it goes up and down like this. If you want to look at any picture, you can look at a snapshot during the year. At the end of the year, our intent is to make sure that they're balanced. Additionally, just for information, that budget is, their contract, SMG's contract is with the city of Lincoln, not with the JPA.
Do you have a last comment, Jane? Told your 5
No,
minutes is up.
except I think that it would be good for the public to hear that there is a possibility that this is in the red, or it is in the red, and that the possibility you're hopeful that it will cover up rather than, or that it'll even out and you'll be in the black, rather than saying it's going to be, because nobody knows what the future is going to hold. Okay?
Thank you. Is there further public comment on this particular agenda item, number 6? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve WH 15-7? Been moved and seconded to accept the financial audit management letter. Any further comment? Seeing none, call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The resolution stands approved. Agenda item number 7, WH 15-3, a resolution relating to Red 1 parking facility. Adam, you're presenting this to us?
Yep. Red 1 is for a contract with CBS Signs to provide permanent vehicular and pedestrian signs for parking garage 1, or Red 1, as it's known now. When the arena was near completion and the garage was near completion, it was the arena was going to open a month early. We were working on a uniform sign look and feel package with the city so that all the garages would match. It wasn't quite ready because we had to open a month early. And because deck 2 and 3 might come on board, we thought there might be some changes. So we did some inexpensive temporary signs for the short term on deck 1. And when deck 2 and 3 came into construction, we had those permanent signs done on those garages. So this is just to match deck 2 and 3 with some nice aluminum and well-made signs that'll last a long time. So that's kind of how the process went, and it's for $33,625. It was bid through the purchasing department, and CBS was the low response bidder.
Questions about it?
Where does this fall? So we're replacing some temporary signs in the red garage and spending some extra money. Where does this fall in line with our total sign budget for garages?
Well, our budgets were done by garages, by each garage, and we've had this in the budget since we knew it might be out there. But deck 1, especially out of all 3 garages, experienced significant savings. We saved so much with the GMP with Hausman that we were able to include all the parking equipment, the parking installation. That in itself is parking equipment installation. That in itself is worth like $350,000 that we had in our budget separately that we included in the GMP with Hausman. So that garage saved north of $750,000. So this is kind of a small amount in that whole scheme of things. So it's part of the reason why there's over $11 million in contingency is that garage. So.
Okay, if there are no additional questions, Adam, thank you. Is there public comment on agenda item number 7? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve WH 15-3?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve it. Further comment? Call the roll.
Henry,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Yes. The resolution stands approved. Agenda item number 8 is WH 15-4, approving a quitclaim deed conveying a certain interest that the JPA may have in a particular lot. Rick Hale is describing that for us.
The purpose of this quitclaim deed is just to solve a title problem that NEPCO has with some property that they purchased from the city of Lincoln. Back before the West Haymarket addition was final platted as a piece of property, the JPA and the city agreed to a swap of certain parcels of land. And one of those parcels of land that the city acquired from the JPA became part of this Lot 2 Haymarket addition. The city owned all their other property within that lot. The city then sold that property to NEPCO. They thought they got 100% ownership of the property. City thought we conveyed 100% ownership of the property. But this year, the JPA received a tax notice from the county assessor saying that appeared that the JPA's interest in this lot was subject to tax because it was being used for a private purpose. When I looked into this matter, I realized that the county assessor was treating the remaining part of this lot, which JPA did not convey to the city of Lincoln, is still being held by the JPA in some capacity. And so this quick claim deed is really just to correct that misconception. County assessor said that would solve the problem that they have, is if we just, JPA quick claims their interest that they might have in this lot to NEPCO. NEPCO then has 100% title. And we're off the issue of being responsible for any taxes on that property.
So I'm understanding it was originally intended to be.
Always to be intended to be
NEPCO.
NEPCO being the full owner. It was always intended initially before that the city owned the entire lot. But the way the property got platted and then a specific deed conveyanced from JPA to city, I don't think the county assessor realized that was JPA was conveying 100% of its property interest in that lot.
Okay. Any questions on the cleanup item? Some further public comment on agenda item number 8.
Where is this exactly located?
It's up by the 901 building that the city has on, or used to own. We sold to NEPCO. That would be
Up by the baseball field.
Baseball
where
fields,
the-
yes.
The new Breslau Center
Yeah.
in that general area.
Where the ice rink is?
By where the baseball field is in that general area, out in that area.
Okay.
I don't have
Baseball, you mean the Haymarket?
Just west and north of where the walking bridge goes over the tracks and into the north end of the arena. Is that fair?
Is there any loss to the city in the finances?
No.
No? Okay. Thank you.
So further public comment on agenda item number 8. Seeing none, is there a motion on WH 15-4?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the resolution be approved. Is there further comment? Call the roll.
Emery?
Yes?
Claire?
Yes.
Eitler?
Yes, the resolution stands approved. Agenda item number 9, WH 15-5, approving a conveyance, I assume it's a easement conveyance, or is it a total conveyance, Adam, to LES with respect to property located at 8th and N?
15-5 is to give the approval to have the chairperson sell approximately 502 square feet of JPA land, which is located by the N Street substation and the Lumberworks garage, over to LES so that they can turn an A-frame structure, which will allow the liner building to the proposed liner building developer to build the building the way they're looking to build it. Right now, LES has an A-frame structure there that connects to a pole, and because of the way it's structured right now, it requires more space. By rotating the A-frame from here to here, it allows, it reduces the clearance needed for the building. So right here, the building is able to extend closer to the substation, and they get more square footage out of their building. So the proposal is to allow the real estate division to set the appropriate price and to allow the chairperson to convey the land.
That's anticipated on the west end of that block.
Exactly. Yep.
All right, questions of Adam? Thank you, Adam. Is there public comment on WH 15-5? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve WH 15-5?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the resolution. Is there further comment? Call the roll.
Emery?
Yes.
Claire?
Yes.
Yes, the resolution is approved. Agenda item number 10, WH 15-6, approving this time the easement in a nearby location. Adam?
So along with turning the A-frame, they need easements for their lines as well as the transformers that will serve the future liner, Lumberworks liner building. So this is just the easement that goes with the previous motion.
Okay. Any questions or comments on Adam's testimony? Seeing none, is there other public comment? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve
Move approval.
WH 15-6? Been moved and seconded to approve it. Any further comment? Call the roll.
Emery?
Yes.
Claire?
Yes.
Yes. Agenda item number 10 is approved. The next meeting date, without objection, will be April 30th, 2015 at 3:30 PM in City County Building, room 303. Is that satisfactory to you?
Works for me.
Gentlemen?
Let me just double check. I think I got it on my calendar. Works for me.
All right, then it works for all of us, and that will be the meeting date. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. Call the roll.
Emery?
Yes.
Claire?
Yes.
Claire?
Yes. We stand adjourned.